Hello, Stihl guy Mike Walsh here in front of the Powerland at Valley Center. Just asking a question. What's in your sawbox? We have a lot of things in our sawbox we want to make sure that you're aware of so that when you're out cutting on trees, you've got all the tools you need. Come on over, let's show you some things. So the first thing we want to talk about is what's going to keep you safe. Personal protective equipment, also known as PPE, is an important part of keeping you protected. We have the protective helmets with hearing protection. These are called ear defenders. It's got a screen to protect your face. We're going to make sure that you have protective eyewear so that they are Z87 plus protection. We're going to make sure that you need gloves so that you can go out there and work and not tear up your hands. And keep in mind, those saw chains are sharp. And most important, we're going to have chaps so that you can protect your legs from your chainsaw. Without just this basic PPE, you're taking too much of a risk when you're using your saw at home. The next thing I want to make sure you're aware of is that there are some forestry tools some of you may not have seen, including things like felling wedges. These wedges are critical for us to make sure that we can force a tree in a direction and that we can keep your saw bar, your guide bar, from being caught. We're also going to show you how a hookaroon works. We're going to show you how to use a cant hook. And as you can see, we've installed the log carrier. All of these things will make your job easier when you're at home. And the last thing I'm going to share with you is, if you're a homeowner cutting on a regular basis, I can't recommend enough that you use Motomix from Stihl. Here's why. When you mix your own fuel, that fuel has ethanol from the gas pump. If you're putting ethanol in your equipment is going to get gummed up from that ethanol. So it's only good for 90 days, even if you're using Stihl Ultra oil. If you use Motomix in your equipment, this Motomix is good because it has stabilizers in the fuel, that this fuel is good in your engine for up to 2 years. So if you're going to put this away, if you're going to put your chainsaw away with fuel in it, do yourself a favor and put Motomix in it. And if I can make a recommendation, if you're not going to put your saw to work for a few months, empty out your fuel, empty out your oil, and go from there. The most important part of personal protective equipment is having some kind of first aid kit. Now, there's plenty of first aid kits out there. Stihl doesn't produce one in particular, but my suggestion to you is have a first aid kit that has a tourniquet and has an Israeli bandage or some other way of stopping bleeding. All of these things together will keep you safe while you're using your Stihl equipment outdoors. One other area that we want to focus on, and we'll spend some more time on other videos about this, is how to keep your saw sharp. The safest way to protect yourself is to make sure your chain loop stays sharp. And the way to do that is to use either our 2-in-1 saws or our saw rolls that allow you to do individually a sharpening on both the cutter and on the depth gauge. All of these tools we'll go into in more detail to show you how they work, but it's an important thing to have in your saw box. One other thing I'd certainly encourage, this is what I call a maintenance kit. Nothing more than a spark plug, a fuel filter, and a fuel line. Having these in your saw box can typically put you back to work if something happens that takes away your ability to generate a spark. When we're talking about what we have in our saw box, one of the most important things that a lot of people forget about is a lot of times you're going to get your chain loop and your guide bar stuck in a tree, stuck in a cut. So one of the things I could highly encourage for you is to go ahead and buy another chain loop and another guide bar. Having these in your box is the difference between a ruined day cutting or just simply swapping out the power head, putting your new saw bar and chain on, and being able to cut yourself out of the mess you got yourself into. So highly recommend an extra chain and an extra bar. So you know what is in my saw box. What's in your saw box? If you need more information about equipment, come see us. We're open Saturday 8 to 4 and Sunday 12 to 4 at Powerland and Valley Center. Or check us out at powerland.com.